All right, so this is your video answer key for your percent test. There were 10 problems, so you want to listen well and pay attention to your mistakes. Keep in mind that the ways that I show are not the only way to arrive at the answer, but the focus of this test was, can you show your process and arrive at the answer? So as long as you could support it and show it in a way that made sense, not just to yourself, but to someone else, like your teacher, that was kind of how we were scoring these. So the first one right here, on the 25-point assignment, Katie missed 7 points. What percent did she get correct? Well, this starts off with a fraction right here. You can see that she got 7 out of 25 wrong. You kind of had to start with that fraction. Now, what I did was I turned this into a decimal, and I did that by dividing my numerator by my denominator. 7 divided by 25, and I would get 28 hundredths. And then once I get to my decimal, I know that I just move my decimal point 2 spaces to the right, because that's essentially doing the same thing as multiplying it by 100. And that's how I end up at my percent, 28%. But the question wasn't what percent did she get wrong. The question was what percent did she get correct. So if she missed 7, that basically means she missed 28%. So I got to subtract that from 100 to figure out what she got right, and that would be 72%. So what we're basically seeing is that an 18 out of 25 would be her actual score, and 18 out of 25, that would result in a 72%. So there's your first one. The second one, Rico took a test. On the first time, he got an 82%. The second time, he got a 38 out of 50. So this is interesting because here they give you a percent, but here they don't. They give you a fraction. So you needed to start there, okay? So we start with that fraction. That was his score, 38 out of 50. And we can do the same thing we did in the last problem where we do some division, or since this is so kind, we can just go right to 100 by doubling that 50, which means we would double 38. That's where the 76 came from. We've doubled both of those. And we know percents are out of 100, so really we do have our percent now, 76%. So that's what his score on the second one was. Compared to the first one, his test got a little bit worse. Okay, it was worse by 6%. There are other ways to do this one. Some people figured out that this is really 82 out of 100, and then they simplify that 41 out of 50, and then they can compare it with the 38 out of 50. That's another way to see this problem, but the bottom line was that his retake was not as good as his first test. Okay. The third one here, you had to figure out the percentage of students that earned a C or better. So the first thing I did here was I kind of looked at how many students are we talking about total. So I kind of looked, and there's 4 here, 3 here, 8, and 6, and 5. So I added all those up because that number of students is extremely important. You got to have that 26. That's what they add up to. Now, what we're going to do, though, is we're going to see how many of the 26 got a C or higher. So we add up just the 8, 3, and 4, and that's where the 15 comes from. Okay, 15 out of 26 students scored a C or higher. Now, again, we have our fraction. So to get to a percentage, we would divide this by 26. We're going to get a decimal that's not going to be kind. Okay, 0.57, so on. But we want to get that to a percentage, so we either move our decimal point 2 spaces over to the right, or we just times it by 100. Again, those are the same two things. Okay, moving it 2 spaces right is essentially timesing a number by 100. That gives us 57 point, all of those numbers, 6, 9, 2, 3, whatever. And it did say they want us to round the nearest percent, so we're going to bump this up to 58 because our 10th digit is 5 or higher. So it's really 58% of the class scored a C or better, which kind of makes sense. This is a little bit more than half of 26. So our percentage will be a little bit more than half of 50%. Okay, that was the first learning target. Second learning target, here we go. You had to find percentages of numbers for this one. Well, these ones were as simple as turning this to a decimal and timesing by 500. Okay, so we would do that. We get 425. Same thing here. Turn this to a decimal and times it by 125, and you get 45. So 45 is 36% of 125. Now, the next two were a little bit trickier because you did not know the grand total number. Okay, like up here it was of 500, of 125. Now they're asking for the grand total number and giving you the part. Okay, so that's what we had to kind of set up. So I came with a different approach here. I set up a double number line, and I knew 45% of something was 27. So on my double number line, my percents are at the bottom. I knew I have 0%. I know I have 100%. So those are kind of the bookends of my double number line. I also know that 0% of anything is going to be 0. And 100% of something will be it. But that's what we're trying to figure out. That's why I put a question mark. The only thing I know is that 45% is 27. That's what we know. 45% is 27. So that's why I put that here. I put it about halfway in the middle. And I want to try to figure out how I can get here using this information. So what I did, and there's other ways to do it, I got my percentage down to a number like 5 that then I can use to springboard me to 100. So I know I can't get from 45 to 100. I can't like double it because that would be 90. I can't triple it because that'd be too much. And I can't just simply add something. I got to multiply or divide to look for equivalent ratios. So I did this ratio divided by 9 because that gives me 5%. And I do the same thing with the 27. I divide it by 9. That's where the 3 came from. So now what that tells me is that 5% of this number, whatever it is 3. And I want to get to 100, which is why you see me multiplying that ratio by 20 to help me get there. I do the same thing with the number on top. I multiply it by 20. And that's where the 60 came from. So in essence, we're finding that 45% of 60 is 27. And so I used a double number line to show that. I did the same approach over here with number 7. Again, start with what you know. You know 35% is 42. So set it up. And I know 35%, well, that's about a third of the way from 0 to 100%. I know that 35% is 42. So that's kind of what I started with. Okay, that's all I had. Now, I know I can't get to 100 easily from there. So I want to get it to something else. Again, I used 5. I got it down to 5% because I know I can get to 100 after that. So I divided it by 7. That also works up here. Divide 42 by 7. That's where the 6 is. So I'm finding out that 6 is 5% of this number, whatever it is. And now I got to get to the final destination by multiplying this ratio by 20 to help me get from 5 to there. So 6 times 20 is 120. That was that one. The key on this learning target was showing your work, folks. I saw some that didn't really show much work. Hard to give you credit when you don't show your process. Number 8, you're comparing 2 stores. American Eagle with prices and a discount. Old Navy with this price and that discount. So you're trying to figure out which one has the better price. So take the price, times it by the discount as a decimal. So for American Eagle, times it by 0.12, and you figure out how much you're saving. You still need to come back and subtract that because that's not the sale price, that's the discount. When we subtract it, we end up with 42.24. Over here for Old Navy, we do the same thing, but we have a different price. We have a different discount. So we multiply the price by the discount as a decimal. We're saving almost 10 bucks. When we subtract that from the price, we get 45 bucks and 10 cents. Now I can compare them. I can say this one is a little bit higher. I have a bigger discount here. I'm saving almost 10 bucks. I'm only saving 6 bucks here, but the sale price is what I'm more concerned with, and that's the better deal at American Eagle. So we're going to take that one and say it's the better price. Number 9, you got the Macy's problem here. You're just finding the sales tax. So you take the price of the shoes, you multiply it by 0.06%. Okay, so turn this to a decimal, 0.06. You multiply them, you get this, which you could round up a penny to 5.39, or you could keep it at 5.38. I gave both parties the answer there, 538 or 539, both were okay. We weren't going to argue over a penny. So 89.75 plus the tax equals 95.14. So you're paying a total of over 95 bucks for those shoes with that sales tax added to it. The last one, though, you had to take it a little further. You had to figure out a sale price first, and then you had to figure out tax on that. So start with the cost of the coat. Multiply it by the discount as a decimal. You're saving 58 bucks. That's what that represents. You subtract that 58 bucks from the coat, and the sale price is right here, $87. That's a pretty good deal. I still got to pay tax, though. It says the sales tax is 8%. So now I get taxed on my sale price. Okay. So I take the sale price, I times it by 8% as a decimal, and I get how much I owe in tax, which is just under 7 bucks. I add that to 87, and I get 93.96. So there is our test. That was 2 learning targets. Go back over a problem if you need to. If you have more questions or further questions or not sure how you lost some points on something, by all means, ask me in class. All right? All right, that's it.